Lennox, welcome to the show, Willie Jackson. We'll just do it like that, nice and easy. G'day, Willie. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
You got home in time? You all right?
Yeah, we just got in, me and Bronze. We got we just come up from Wellington. We were a couple of rows in front of Seymour, which was great. I don't like sitting by him, but when we do sit by each other, we're you got to be cordial, eh? You got to play the game. You know how it is, boys. You know.
So you were in business class and he was in economy. Is that basically it?
No business class and on domestics now, mate. You know, we've got out of that for a long, long time. But you know, you got a few. All the politicians try and get on that 6:55 flight. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your time. I guess to start off the conversation, we've talked to a lot of people who are at either or Ratana and the Kingitanga Hui. Be keen to get your thoughts on those first two events, first two big events, particularly for Māori, and how Māoridom has come out of them with a focus for 2024.
Yeah, well, I was at both of the events. The Kingitanga one was a marvellous coming together of our people. You know, you don't... and it wasn't just Māori there. When I say our people, Kiwis really, because quite a diverse audience there. I mean, probably 85% Māori, but plenty of Pākehā people there, Pacifica, and from all areas of life. You know, Governor Generals, former Governor Generals, former Prime Ministers, mongrel mob members. I mean, those guys are mainly outside actually, but they were okay. They don't cause no trouble. You know, there's probably 15 or 20 of them. But that's what it's all about, you know, to bring that sort of crowd in, no trouble, everybody mixing, and it was a special event. Kingitanga, I don't know if you guys know the history, but it's actually protest. It's not really about being a king and queen. You know, I'm not a big royalist myself. You know, I'm a Republican. I don't really go down the old dames and sirs sort of line. It's not my sort of area. You know, although in saying that, my mother was a dame, but I tried very hard to convince her to not take the title, but she said I was from the activist side of the family and I didn't have to come to her damehood. But you know, just back to this Hui, you know, when you have all those types of people coming, it's a fantastic thing. And so the message that they were running from the top there was, you know, this is about kotahitanga, unity, coming together. And I think it was a great start. You know, if I'm being honest, I was probably expecting a bit more at the end, but you know, I thought there might have been a Kingitanga declaration. You know, that's right. What you know, like you hit this mark, that mark, but I'm more, you know, I'm a person who wants more out of that, and sometimes people like me have to be a bit patient and think, well, hang on, we got 10,000 together. You've got the base, you've got the foundation, and just everyone sort of saying, right, well, we're together as Māori. That's a good start. We're not going to put up with this nonsense from this government. It was a good start. Followed up by Ratana, where you would have seen Winston and Shane Jones getting booed, which I thought was great. You know, I mean, they sort of take it on the chin. Jonesy, I mean, look, Jonesy's an old mate of mine. You know, drives me crazy. But he comes out with Shane comes out with this. You would have heard it. You come to Waitangi and say that sort of thing. I said to him, you know, try your luck in Waitangi. I said to them, why would they bother coming to Waitangi? They're from Ratana Pa. They'll say, well, their piece at Ratana Pa. You don't want to worry about them at Waitangi. The people you want to worry about, your own relations, you know. And so that'll be the test for Shane from some of his nephews and all that who, you know, he should be fine, but it's not the Ratana people. So they called him a taurekareka, which is sort of, you know, one of the worst things you could call anybody in Māoridom, you know, which is a bit of a scumbucket, you know. And so they said that in Māori, and Shane took that very badly. And so he said, you come to Waitangi and try it. But I don't know where he was going with that, because there's some loose characters up there who he should be worrying about more than the people at Ratana. But it was good at Ratana, where I thought they were very clear to the government. You know, you had to step up in terms of sort of direct messages, didn't you? You had the Kingitanga Kotahitanga perspective, and then when you went to Ratana Pa, you had a whole leadership of Ratana challenging them, saying to them, "You're selling us out. We won't put up with it, and you better change the direction you're going in." And so they got messages that they'd never got before at Ratana Pa. So I was really proud of what happened at Ratana. The crowd was very substantial. Would have been, of course, wouldn't have been 10,000, but there would have been a good 3,000 or 4,000 there, and that's a pretty substantial crowd. And they said to them, we want you to honour the treaty. That's what they said at Ratana Pa. And we want to carry this kōrero on at Waitangi. And that's where we're going, and that's where we're going now. I thought Seymour was very disrespectful in terms of Ratana, the way he just wrote Ratana off
as a religious event.
Yeah. But so we'll see what sort of response he gets when he gets to Waitangi.
Hey, Willie, I've got a question which I only just thought of now because you prompted it. Shane Jones, in particular Shane Jones, because everyone talks about Shane Jones, especially within Māoridom, that he's a mate, he's an uncle, he's this, that, the other thing. Does he believe what he's saying right now about Māoridom in supporting the messages of Winston Peters? Or, as the kids would say, is he grifting? Some people will say a message that they don't actually believe for the sake of where they want to go politically or in business or whatever. Is he actually fully invested, and does he believe what he's saying, the messages he's spreading, or is he towing the party line? Maybe that's a more polite way to say it.
Well, he's driving the party line, isn't he? He's the deputy leader. He's driving the party line. Look, Shane is he's an old mate. I can't help it. I've known him over 40 years, so you don't chuck that away, and does he believe everything he says? My view is no, but he believes some of what he says, but a lot of he's a provocateur, he will always be conflicted. Shane is one of the most one of the best Maori language speakers in the country, you see, so he is an absolute expert in our language and our culture. But whether you're an expert in our language or culture is by the by. If you're a sellout, you're a sellout, and that's what some of our people are saying now and have said for some time to Shane. And I think it's starting to hurt a bit, and you'll probably get a fair bit of it at Waitangi. At the same time, he knows he's still got his whānau and relations who just look. I don't know if you guys know Jonesy, but he's quite a character, and so him and I have. We've always got on, even when we've been at this stage, and that is a Maori thing. That is a whānau thing, because when I turned 60, his son was down here doing my kaingwana, my seafood. When his mother died, my wife was there. When my wife's father died 2 weeks ago, Shane was there. So some people don't understand. You can't take the tikanga or whanaunga side out of the relationship. But that doesn't stop me from calling Shane a sellout, and we'll go at each other at 100 miles an hour. Don't worry about that. The same with Winston. Winston is, I said to him, I did an interview, I don't know if you guys saw it, a month or so back, and he hit me up about it. I did it with Joe Moyer, and I said, look, Winston is a mixture of magic and madness, all tied in one. And the magic is, how the hell does this near 80-year-old keep getting across the line, because he's a political phenomenon, that's why. But the madness is all the stuff we've been hearing from Winston lately. He's got this obsession with the UN. He doesn't think Maori are indigenous. He's going down the conspiracy theory lines. That's not the Winston I used to know.
But you could. I'm not that I'm going to, but you could ask the same question. Like, is this expedience for him to get back into politics, or does he believe it? I don't think he believes it. I don't think that's who he is.
You're talking with Shane and I think
Mr. Peters. I think Mr. Peters has found his niche to get back into Parliament. That's what I believe. I don't think he believes it at all.
Well, he's a huge opportunist, Winston. He spots a gap. But even Winston at his worst, and you guys would never have seen a worse interview that he did with Jack Tame at the end of last year. It was like the worst. I said to Winston, that's the worst interview in the history of mankind, mate. But his supporters did not care, did they? They did not care. He only needed his 5%. So back to your question about Shane, I think Shane believes half of what he says, and then the other half is all performance, bravado, and placating a lot of that redneck view that permeates from some of the New Zealand First factions and right-wing factions. But he's so torn and conflicted. Winston, I'm not sure now. I don't think so. The thing with Winston, I don't think Winston's as good as he used to be. You know, right. I thought you can see a vulnerability there.
Yeah, he's slowed down for sure.
He makes mistakes. We've never seen that before. So
agreed.
I mean, and that's why I think for us as a government, they offer an opportunity because it's not a national government as such, is it? It's a three-headed monster now, and I think that's an Achilles heel without doubt. It's not the National Party that Key had was in charge of. I don't think Luxon's in charge of this lot. So Winston does whatever he likes.
Yep. I think you're right there. Chewy, you got anything, mate? You want to jump in?
I think we discussed that as the government formed. Is that Luxon's such a rank amateur at politics, and he's coming straight from the business world as a CEO. And Winston has always inhabited and swum in the political sphere. They're two very you can't, it's like a CEO talking to a department head. Hey, look, get this done. You try that same shit with Winston. He'll just dog walk you up and down the Parliament forecourt.
He's the expert. So I don't think he's in charge, and I think Winston does whatever Winston wants to do. And I think Seymour's dangerous to these guys, and I don't think Seymour's helping them at all at the moment. You think about it. I don't know if you guys read Hooton's article about a week or so back, where he said if a good prime minister would just get rid of this treaty principles bill because it's causing them a huge amount of fuss. And you're seeing more and more of their former ministers coming out against it, aren't you?
Yep, and that's why I think Luxon's handed off the Associate Justice Minister with responsibility for the referendum to Seymour, and now as the CEO, Luxon will go and talk to my department head. He's responsible for it, but what he obviously is trying to fool the country with is, as our old mate Bomber says, if you open the door, Mr. Luxon, anything that comes through belongs to you. And he's opened the door for this conversation by going into coalition with them. So whether it's his policy or not, he owns it, and he can't get away from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'm watching the response to this treaty principles bill. And, as you guys have heard, probably from the Deb Packers and the Margaret Mutus, we find it offensive, We find it offensive because, Maori have played the game. We played the game here.
Yeah.
We went through the courts. We went through the process. I'm not sure if you remember that. I'm not sure how old you guys are, but you both look older than me. I thought I'd just tell you both that anyway. But I don't know if you're around in the mid '80s or how old were you guys then?
School, secondary school,
primary school. Anyway,
it's the beards, guys. It's the beards. I'm sure you shaved them off. You look younger than me. But if you go back into the '80s, and if you followed Maori activism. My two uncles were probably seen as the most radical Maori activists of all. My uncle Sid Jackson, they used to call Uncle Sid, the Malcolm X of New Zealand, and my uncle Moana Jackson is seen as like the legal expert that everyone followed, and they were not people who wanted to sign up to the principles at all, and they had their supporters, and they were very close to me, but I watched what was happening, and so you had Uncle and the uncles and Tamaiti and all them said, no, we ain't signing up to that principle stuff, and you understand why, because the strict Maori argument is, hang on, this is Tino Rangatiratanga is about us running the show. And you're hearing that type of whakaaro, that type of view from the Māori Party now, you would have heard JT running the line too. Partnership, we run the show, and so you had that type of kōrero, and then you had the right wing saying, oh, hang on, no, it's no partnership, no, it's nothing. It's actually nothing. So you had the left and right, extreme left, extreme Māori faction, extreme right faction, who weren't supporting the partnership. So then you come to these judges who think, how are we going to run this country, right? So these judges put a pragmatic view. Lord Cook, probably not a Bush lawyer like Seymour tries to make out, probably he makes out like the activist Bush bloody lawyers from Kaitaia, Cook was the most celebrated judge of the 20th century, in terms of this sort of mahi. They looked at the treaty and they gave a pragmatic approach in terms of the principles. That did it go down with the extremes on our side? No. Did it go down with the right? No. With the right wing? No. Did it go down with most Maori and most Pākehā? Well, yes. Yes, it did, because they said, hang on, this is akin to a partnership. We need to have an Aotearoa, because you've got to remember, Māori didn't have anything, and all the challenges were coming in from everywhere. I thought it was a brave decision they made. Of course, the treaty didn't say, like Seymour on them go, where does it say a partnership? Of course it didn't say that. But that's not how judges operate. They look at what the principle of what it was meant to be. They also look at New Zealand today, or back in 87. What do we want here? Do we want a war? Or do we want a pragmatic way of working? They came up with a pragmatic way of working, and they came up with the principles of the treaty. I thought it was brilliant. Were Māori overwhelmingly happy? No. But what it led to was a treaty settlement process.
Yeah.
And that was a pragmatic way of iwi getting compensation. Again, was it enough money? No. Was it a fair settlement? No. In terms of Tainui and Ngaitahu. But our people brought into it, because better to have something rather than nothing. And because of the principles, you had the treaty settlement process. You had we have Māori television. We have Māori radio. We have Māori initiatives all around the country. That all came off these judges' initial judgment. And we've got comfortable with that. And although we keep moaning about it, we also know we want to preserve that, because all of that goes under threat now, because you've got this stupid Seymour. Let's open the argument again. And I'm thinking, be careful what you want, mate. Be careful what you want, because and so Māori are going, hang on, we've brought into all this now. Now you want to change it all. It's just crazy stuff from Seymour. And here's the thing, guys. I look at Seymour and I think, who do you think you are? It's like Trump in New Zealand, isn't it? It's like he's like a Trump, a version of Trump. He knows more than Lord Cook, He knows more than Lord Cook.
Willie, I think this is one of the best points you've made, especially during the debate cycle, is that either all of those academics, all of those judges, all of those tribunals, all of these historians are wrong to make Seymour right. Right, so he knows better than all. I think that point, we've brought that up several times. That point that you've been making for the last few months is a really clear point, and it should cause pause. It doesn't, unfortunately. But I've got one other question I want to ask you. I just wrote it down now. I haven't thought of this before. This is a question for you. This might be a bit of a mind bender, but speaking to Professor Mutu this week, and her describing, we asked her, just inform us, teach us, when the treaty was signed in 1840, what did it mean then versus the bullshit we're being told about today by some? So here's a question for you, right? We're going to go multiversing. What do you think New Zealand would look like if the treaty had been honoured and followed to its letter and to the spirit of it since 1840? What would it look like today? Like if it never had been fucked over, if it never, you can borrow our land during World War II and then never give it back. None of that stuff. If none of that stuff had ever happened, what would New Zealand look like? How would it operate today if we weren't fighting to have the treaty honoured and backdated? It was just all the way through that the contractual agreement was adhered to.
Well, I don't think you would have seen the terrible stats that we've had as Maori. I don't think you would have seen the terrible stats, because what we never got access to resource. We never got access to funding. And so you had Maori lag behind in the health area, in the education area, and all the in the housing area. Maori if the treaty had been honoured, Maori would have been honoured. And so Maori would have been in a totally better space in terms of an economic position today. That's what I sincerely believe, because Maori would just, something they signed it off and then they just forgot about us altogether. And so what you've seen for the last 50 years is us lag behind in every socio-economic area. And I just think we would have been in so better positioned as a people if the treaty had been honoured. And that's been the source of our angst, is that we haven't, Maori have missed out on opportunity missed out on opportunity, access to. It's always about access to education, access to health. Our people, and they'll tell you in the north, Margaret, and the stats were terrible in terms of the health area. That's why we've in the last 20 years you've seen the springing up of Maori providers, because we got lost in mainstream. And what has worked in the last 10, 20 years? Well, when our people have been able to have the opportunity to turn things around. That's why whānau order is so important. That's why JT's work, when we worked with our people at the coalface, when we delivered for our people during the health crisis that we had through COVID. That's why that work was incredibly important, because our people were able to get funding and resourcing and able to turn things around. So I just believe what you would have seen is a much more equitable country, and we would have all been better off. Doesn't mean to say that it's all bad now, though. Let me tell you, I think New Zealand, I'm not as negative as some. I think that if you look at the position of this country, there's a lot to be proud of. See, I don't write it all off. Deb and them, their line is, it's just terrible. I said to JD, you're going to jump off the bloody Auckland Harbour Bridge if you listen to you lot for too long. Like there's a lot to celebrate, because within the system. So I believe that you have to get change within the system. So I have a bit of a different view to say Debbie and them, who want their own system, right? They want their own parliament. I think, no, what we need is we need to get resources to Maori, more Maori into the housing area, get better health statistics, get better education. And we have to use the system, because the system has been bad to us and hasn't delivered for us. And we can't advance as Maori if our whole drive is just about our identity. It's got to be an identity and economic strategy going forward. It's got to be, if you know what I'm saying, identity and class go together. You can't just run one without the other. Otherwise, see, that's what we used to debate in the old days. I used to debate with my uncles. I'd say, you got to run a class argument with this. Otherwise, you lose people along the way. You lose. So you got Pākehā boy, and who you've been brought up with in South Auckland, West Auckland. You got to support that guy who was your mate all your life. You can't just leave him behind. So you got to make sure that the economic support is there for your fellow Kiwis. We move together. It can't just be an identity strategy, treaty, and forget about the economic side of things. Because here's the other side, boys. Most of our people, 85% of our people, don't speak the language. They're not hooked into what myself and Debbie Packer and John Tamahiri are hooked in. They're Maori who are proudly Maori, but they don't want to participate in a lot of the stuff that, say, the Maori Party talks about. Their kids don't speak Maori. So we have to continually run two strategies for our people who are involved in mainstream and our people who want to practice our culture. And that's really, really tricky. See, Maori Party, they did well in the elections because they appealed to the young ones, right? And so the young, and it was great. They won 6 of the 7 seats. But don't forget, boys, that we got 85,000 votes in the Maori seats in terms of the list vote. Maori Party got 58,000. So our people use MMP very, very cleverly, because they want two strong entities, Pāti Maori and us, trying to get change for Maori in mainstream.
Hey, Willie, it's been great talking to you tonight. Chewy, we've dominated the conversation here, but do you want to wrap anything up with Willie, Chewy?
I have one, well, 2 questions, maybe. One of the things is I think this, if there's a silver lining to Seymour doing this, is it feels like it's a rip the Band-Aid moment. There's been a lot of advances in putting forward more Maori issues over the last 25 years. I think this has galvanized quite a reaction, like not just from Maori, but from non-Maori allies and that sort of thing. That, oh shit, all of this progress that has been fought for and gained, it's not locked in. So it almost feels like there's this second wave of activism, of pushback, of, I guess, really acknowledging the fact that we need to fight for this. Is that something that you see and feel?
Yeah, I like seeing Pākehā people, people of all ethnicities supporting what we're talking about, because I think what you guys recognise is this is a justice issue. This is a justice issue.
Yeah, 100%.
Maori have engaged and gone through the court process. Maori have compromised, in terms of saying, yeah, okay, we'll go with that partnership idea, and then. And a lot of Maori who did that were called sellouts, but you find more and more people thought, well, actually, you still get results. You look at the state of a lot of the iwi now. So our people have bought into the system deliberately to try and get change, and then they try and change things again. It's really really insulting in terms of us. And then you've got Seymour who puts him, and of course he's so deceptive, so he's so nice, and then he gives all this nonsense about the treaty and democracy and how the treaty parts of the treaty apply to everyone, like Article 2 and Article 3. Nothing could be further from the truth. And what he's trying to do is actually get rid of the Maori indigenous rights that are there because of the treaty, that are recognised worldwide and by the highest judges. And the lines they run, activist judges, or why should judges make those decisions? Yeah. Let me tell you why, guys, because that's what judges do. That's the job.
That's their job.
That's why you're the judge. You wouldn't trust politicians to make the decisions, would you? Judges of Cook's stature had to find a way for New Zealand society to work well together. And if you think about it, we have worked well together. When Maori protests happen, have you seen violence? Have you seen? You've seen nothing like you see overseas. It's been great, so good that heaps of Pākehā people get involved. Waitangi's been a classic example. I don't know if you guys have been up there, but I remember telling my old mate Mike King. You guys know Mike King. He used to talk about it 20 or so years back. I said, you don't even know what you're talking about, Mike. You're just buying into this rubbish there. There's all these nut jobs up there. That's just part of the action. It's one of the most wonderful weekends going. And people started saying that at Waitangi. It's there's a lot to be proud about in New Zealand. But this is dangerous stuff, and it'd be fascinating to see if how far it goes, I suppose, because you'd think they'd chuck it out, that they wouldn't get any support after select committee. But you don't know with this lot. You don't know with this National Party lot. They changed the rules. You've seen what the back off in terms of smoke free. It's we've got the minimum wage today. I think it's gone to 2%. It's just like everything. You're seeing the Casey Costello stuff, and I'm sure you're going to get onto that. So you just don't know, and you just don't know in politics what's going to happen next. Yeah.
Well, we thank you for your time, Willie. We'll be keeping an eye on Waitangi Day next week. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting time for all. Someone said in our chat last night it's been far, far, far too long since someone's been hit in the face with a sex toy. So we look forward to maybe that next week. But look, we do thank you for your time.
Thanks,
I know you're a busy man, giving up some of your time when you get home to see the whānau. All the best for the weekend. All the best for Waitangi Day, and go well.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Good luck with the show. Well done. Kia ora.
Thanks, Willie.